You go to sauna.
Right.
You have a hot plate and you put water on it to create a steam. This is what they've done with these reactors in Japan. But now you're getting the fallout in North America.
MT, what do you think about them dumping 10,500 tons of radioactive water into the ocean?
But that's too late, isn't it? It's gone. But we don't know because a lot of facts are not out yet. You have to analyze these facts in the cool of the time, in a year time, to see how much damage was done because of the tsunami and how much damage was done because of human factors. And what is gone to the sea, if it's done by the tsunami, there is nothing you can do. This is a fact of life with the nuclear industry.
Right. No, it wasn't done by the tsunami. It was done to try to get rid of the radioactivity that was building up.
There is a lot of misinformation in that. It doesn't make sense.
Okay.
What is being put out is a lot of information to calm the population down.
There's nothing calming to me about dumping 10,500 tons of nuclear water into the Pacific Ocean, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah, but the thing is, was it done deliberately, or what did it happen during the tsunami? Was it a crack in the containment building? Was the control room rust and the injection or the loss of the material came about? Yeah? Was it deliberately dumped? How much of it? Is this a factor of what it is? You cannot eat fish. If I go to Japan, the first thing I refuse to eat is fish because the contamination will be there for centuries.
I'm told last week we're not even supposed to eat fish in America anymore.
You're sitting on the streamline. Most probably not. Most probably not. Don't eat any what I call deep sea shellfish because the heavy materials will land sinks to the bottom, and the contamination sits somewhere in the shallow waters where there is less current.
What about people eating meat in the United States?
You're already contaminated. The milk is already contaminated, huh? There was an article I read that the European government, EU, are considering banning cheese and milk in Europe because the contamination has already arrived here. You received it before we do, and in more dosages. By the time it gets here, we get a fraction of what you received. Luckily, we are on the opposite end. You lot get everything before it arrives to us.
Wow.
So I'm very clear. People know I speak my mind and I speak scientifically because scaremongering doesn't work. The reality is, even the best thing you can do just for reducing the radiation damage is to buy sea salt. I was explaining this to my family who live in Canada very recently. You buy natural sea salt, which is not purified. It's still in the original state. And the only way you know a natural sea salt is not processed sea salt is that when you put it in the water, you mix it, you will find like a black, dirty muck on the bottom of your pot.
Right.
That is a real thing, yeah? You empty the dirt out, you just take the top water, and you wash your vegetables because that has enough to absorb most of the radiation which comes through vegetables. But that's a very small dosage because you're breathing it all the time.
And what about the water supply?
You're contaminated, unless it's a deep water, huh?
Right.
If you've got a deep water, you're not. If you have a water which is, coming through the reservoirs, open reservoirs, is already contaminated. This situation will teach us a lot. There is a reason for this accident. I see it always as a positive thing when things like this happen. This will open up the nuclear industry. This will stop the proliferation technology. This will allow openness in nuclear industry in a way that everybody is there to do something because they don't want to lose their face. I had a very interesting email. Somebody sent me a link that how come the Iranians and Americans are talking about the same thing to save Japan? Do you think they will ever work together to do it? I don't see why not. But on the other hand, it means a lot of acceptance, huh? A lot of acceptance from one side to another, a lot of trust building, and in a way, to save each other's life, they might come together.
Is Iran concerned about the radiation coming there?
Yes, we are very much, of course. We are all a part of the same nation. We are part of the same community. This thing about Iran being this and that is just a huge phase of selling arms to the Middle East. They all know what it is, yeah?
Right.
I was supposed to give a lecture at Johns Hopkins University in Washington not this February, last February, after I published my book, I was invited as guest lecturer to give a talk at Johns Hopkins University. They would not issue my visa. Then I started asking why, if it's just something scientific, and I was invited by the Department of Energy of the United States to give this lecture. It was explained to me in a nutshell, which was very interesting. He said, the guy says to me, you're an Iranian nuclear physicist. You are carrying a reactor which is developed by Iran while you were there, where you're space technology and energy. We as Americans are boycotting you and banning you to United Nations for your nuclear energy. How can we allow you to come and tell us what you're doing there? You understand?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, though. It doesn't make any sense.
No, but the scientific world, the scientists in the Department of Energy and NASA, who was part of this program, wanted to know what is upcoming and how this book has come about. That was invitation immediately within a couple of weeks after I wrote the first book. So why a scientist has to be banned for explaining what he has developed just because he's Iranian and he worked with the nuclear industry, and at the same time somebody puts on the internet. Since when being Iranian and nuclear physicist has become to be a terrorist? Because what has happened, the American government has put Keshe Foundation as a terrorist organization because it's supporting Iranian nuclear industry. We have nothing to do with these things. I put the reactor technology, space technology with NASA going back 1985. You didn't listen doesn't mean everybody else doesn't. Just because you put your head down in the snow and you think your body's sticking up, nobody knows, nobody else will know, doesn't work. The Iranians wanted to know. I gave lectures in China. I gave talks in South Korea. I give lectures around Europe to different institutes. Why not?
Are you saying you're not allowed to come to the United States?
No. I'm banned from moving. I tell you, go on my forum. On the 8th of June last year, I was board of a plane through Toronto to Mexico City. The officer was at the door with all my sites. You know, when you said my site in the previous talk, you know, that my site is how it is, he had the dossier, all my internet outlets, all my papers was in his hand, a young chap. His name is Colonel, what do you call it, the bird. It's on my forum. I put his name and his rank number, yeah? And he says to me, we've been waiting for you, and for past 3 days, I've been studying your site to be able to speak to you in a nuclear language. I said, but nobody knew till 24 hours ago that I'm moving. How come for 3 days? So they're sitting in my house, they're sitting in my bed, they listen when I whisper to my wife. That's how much we are controlled. Because my ticket was bought less than 20 hours before my flight. Nobody knew I'm on move. My visa to Mexico was issued less than 24 hours before my move. How come the guy was studying it for 3 days? And at the same time, when they arrested me and they kept me, incarcerated me in the camp, they call it, with the, what do you call it, the court inside the camp, they told me if I tell the judge what I'm arrested for, I might not come back alive. You told me I'm not frightened of my life. I've been frightened by the Canadians. Canadians put my death sentence on my table in front of me if I speak. I have no problem. And then the day they wanted to put me back on the plane, the two officers, I have emails from them. I have everything I can show it because I'll put it on my website. The guy says, I went to my people. They told me you're flying at 2 o'clock. They're coming to pick you up. I went to my, what do you call it, the officers in the camp. I said, I'm going to talk. They said, no, you're not going anywhere. If you go, we know in advance by a week. I called the guy who told me he's moving me. He gave me his number. He said, is there any problem? I said, they told me I'm not moving for another week or so. He said, no, I've got your release paper from the Prime Minister. I'm coming in direct. We're taking you ourselves. How come a Prime Minister of a government has to sign the release of a paper of a scientist who's so unknown? Why? They know what we do. They know what we are doing. We are a peaceful institute. We work very tight. We don't go into arms. We don't touch arms. We develop the weapon technology of our science, our technology, for deep space, because I don't believe when you go to space, you can dodge and duck and die from meteoroids or space dust. So I have developed the technology to protect my systems in flight. They call it a space technology, weapon technology.